Hello there, Everypony. I am the German Snob, and I want to give you my review of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 2. Now, I will review the season episode per episode, and maybe make a little closing statement on the season as a whole. But, let's do it by episode. So, not actually the first episode, but the first two episodes, seeing as they're connected, the Return of Harmony. So, yeah, I like them. I don't think I like them as much as many other people like them, but they were really good. Now, obviously, Discord was a very memorable villain with one hell of an awesome voice. He was, by the way, voiced by John Delancey, who I think was in Star Trek, but I'm not a Star Trek fan, so that's just what I heard. Yeah, he was hilarious and, well, he was the kind of mix of evil and funny that, for example, the Joker has and what makes the Joker such a memorable villain. And Discord 2 was a very memorable villain who I really enjoyed. Now, I am not sure if I'd say it was better than the first two episodes of season 1. You know, while season 1, I think it's kind of the opposite of season 1. Season 1 had a pretty strong first episode, but the second one I think didn't work all that well. To be exact, I think the best part about the second episode of season 1 was Stephen Magnet. But Return of Harmony, on the other hand, I think didn't start off all that strong, but the second episode was pretty good. So yeah, the first two episodes, I liked them, but I don't think they were that great. Okay, for the third episode, which was Lesson Zero. I know this episode was pretty popular with most people, even though it had some controversy, and I can see why, but I want to be honest with you guys. I really didn't like it. Now, Lesson Zero, it had a few really funny moments, but it just didn't work for me. I am not sure why exactly. People say it was because Twilight Sparkle was out of character, and yeah, that was kind of a part of it. I think her actions in the story, being all like crazy and neurotic, didn't work that well. Now, I wouldn't have a problem with that if it was a different kind of show, but thing is, I think Friendship is Magic is mostly very character driven. And if you start to mess with the characters, just something stops to work. So, to say that much, no, I didn't like it. I didn't find it all that memorable either. So, Lesson Zero, I give it a thumbs down. You may disagree, but I didn't like it all that much. Now, at this point, I was kind of afraid that season 2 would follow the direction of Lesson Zero, being more, I guess you can say, humor driven or, well, generally being less character driven. But the third, or rather the fourth episode, if you don't count the first two as one episode. However, the fourth episode, as it's officially, Lunar Eclipse proved me wrong. Now, Lunar Eclipse is, I think, among my favorites of the season. Now, it wasn't a particularly adventurous episode. I think it was more of a sitcom episode. And I like my sitcom episodes, to be honest. And I really liked it because it had Luna, and Luna was awesome. I think they did a really good job with her characterization. I think Fan and Luna, even though I don't really pay all that much attention to Fanon, was kind of what TV Tropes calls a ruby, kind of that she pretty much was Fluttershy with a darker background, and I didn't see that working for her. Now, Lunar Eclipse showed Luna as being very proud and being very dignified, but having a problem about fitting in with pretty much modern Ponyville society. And yeah, they did make a very good episode out of it. They made it a Halloween themed episode, which was a very good decision in my opinion, because it works really well for a Princess of the Night. Now, I'm kind of disappointed that was Luna's. Well, it wasn't the only episode she was in, but one of the only episodes she was in, and the only episode which actually had a focus on her. But yeah, great episode. Though I have really no idea what the character of Pipsqueak was all about. I mean, when I first saw him, I thought, oh boy, he's going to be a reoccurring character, but he wasn't. And now I'm happy that he wasn't, but I had no idea why he was there at all. So yeah, great episode. The next episode was Sisterhoof Social. Uh, I don't have much of an opinion on that episode. Well, actually, yes, I do have. It's vaguely positive. Now, to clarify it, I'm not that much of a fan of the Cutie Mark Crusaders. They actually they kind of grew on me during the second season, but in the first season I just didn't like them. You know, in the first season I kind of liked Apple Bloom for pretty much having the southern accent of Applejack because I really ticked that accent. But Sweetie Belle was just pretty bland, and Scootaloo just seemed like a annoying brat to me. But yeah, I think the second season kind of redeemed them in my eyes. I'm still not much of a fan of them because, let's face it, I just don't like kids. Oh, well, maybe not, but you know. So where was I going? Yeah, Sisterhoof Social. It was a good episode, mainly because it had Rarity, and you know, Rarity is one of my favorite characters, and maybe my favorite of the main six. Well, no, not really. It's kind of a tie. Um, and it had some pretty cute interaction between Sweetie Belle and Rarity. Now, I think that it wasn't that memorable of an episode. I mean, it didn't have that many great jokes or memorable lines, but it was funny. I mean, I did find the whole thing about being sisters is like apple pie part pretty funny. But other than that, it was a good episode, but it wasn't that great. I don't have much of an opinion on it. Okay, the sixth episode, on the other hand, the Cutie Pox. You know, it wasn't bad, but it actually it shared a problem with some episodes in season 2 that I didn't notice, or maybe that wasn't in season 1. It suffered from quite a bit of padding. Now, the Cutie Pox, if you remember, was plot wise, no, was by its story nothing too special. You know, Apple Bloom kind of. God, I don't exactly remember. I think she took a potion to get her cutie mark, and you know she gets a lot of them, and she has to act all the things that her cutie marks are about. Well, you know the story. Now the problem I have with the episode was again the padding, because there were a rather long part during the middle of the episode. I mean, it was about 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I'm not exactly sure, but it's you know kind of a lot considering it's a about 20 minutes episode, where you pretty much only saw Apple Bloom playing with her, you know, hula hoop. I think the show called it not actually a hula hoop, but a loop de hoop. I think that's what it was. And there was some nice animation in there, but it just didn't move the episode forward. So therefore, it didn't quite keep my attention. Now, it's always nice to have an episode with Sikora in it because I kind of like her, but the episode in itself was nothing special. And, you know, segue, so was the next episode, May the Best Pet Win. Now, I have to give the episode some credit because it was one of the better Rainbow Dash episode, because Rainbow Dash, she kind of got the short end of the stick in this season. You see, the thing is, that episode also had a lot of padding. There was well, maybe it's not exactly padding because it is kind of episode relevant, but I think it dragged on for too long. You know, those parts where you see Rainbow Dash's, all her potential pets having that contest. There were some pretty funny scenes in there, but it was too long, I think. And while I sort of dug the episode's premise, by the way, I kind of called it. I kind of called already during the first season, if Rainbow Dash ever is going to have a pet, it's going to be a turtle. Or, a tortoise. uh, but that's beside the point. Still, it's not a bad episode, but I didn't find it all that memorable either. So, I know many people like it. Not a huge fan. It's good, but it's not great. Now, it got followed up by another Rainbow Dash episode, which was very controversial. And by that I mean very controversial. The mysterious Mare Duvel. I see why people have a problem with this episode, and it's certainly not among my favorites either. It's. Yeah, it is not that good. Now, to be honest, I still like it more than I like Lesson Zero. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's better than Lesson Zero, it just means it just didn't go against my personal preferences the way Lesson Zero did. However, the mysterious Mare-Duvel was just not particularly good at anything. I mean, it wasn't very funny, it wasn't very interesting story-wise, it didn't have very good characterization. There were some nice superhero references that I kind of enjoyed, but it just wasn't a very good episode. Though, I kind of like the way that Mare-Duvel's costume kind of looks like Darkwing Duck. Because that's a show I grew up with, but, beside the point, it wasn't very good. Rainbow Dash's characterization in that episode was kind of horrible. Um, Not a fan. It's not as bad as some people make it out to be, but it's not good either. But the next episode is one of my personal favorites. Sweet and Elite. Now, I already mentioned I really like Rarity. I'm not exactly sure why I like her. And I guess it's because she's the artist pony and I like artists. And I really like it. For one, because, the premise was actually nothing special. I mean, Rarity went to Canterlot, got into high society, and had to choose between, high society and her friends. Nothing exactly special, but I liked the way it was realized. For one, because I really liked the character of Rarity. But for the other part, I think that episode had another really good character, which was Fancy Pants. That guy was awesome. And I liked his. I guess she was supposed to be his girlfriend, hanging around him, I think her name is Fleur de Lis. Yeah, they were hilarious. Also, that episode had my favorite song of the season, I think. The Pony Every Pony Should Know. It was really catchy, it really fit Rarity's character very well, and um, the visuals going with the song were pretty good. I really dug Rarity's hipster Audrey Hepburn-like outfit. The one with the beret and the sweater, and she pretty much looked like a beatnik. That I really liked. So yeah, it was a great episode. It had great characterization of one of my favorite ponies, and the other main six, they didn't have that much of a role in the episode, but they all were very good. I mean, I liked that little scene of Twilight Sparkle dancing as someone I think mentioned like a white person. That was funny. And it got followed up by another very good episode, Secret of My Excess. Oh my god, that episode was really, really cute. Now I like Spike. He is kind of the only male main character, or kind of main character, and for that I really like him. He's funny. He's you know if the Cutie Mark Crusaders were initially the kind of children in media that I don't like, Spike is exactly the kind I do like. Uh, so what is to say about that episode? It had some pretty great characterization of Spike and Rarity. Now there was, I think, what TV Tropes calls ship teasing. Not going too much into that, but I think it had a nice storyline. It, with dragons all becoming bigger and greedier the more you give them, kind of explains how the dragon in universe work, which was very interesting to see. Now, of course, the climax of the show was the ending with Spike and Rarity and that whole King Kong thing. You know what I'm talking about. So, great episode. It was just really emotional and really heartwarming, and for that I enjoy it. And that's all I have to say about it. The next episode was Hearthwarming Eve. And first, I couldn't believe that it was written by the same author as Mysterious Ne'er-do-well because it was so much better. Don't get me wrong, it's not exactly one of my favorite episodes, but it was very nice in the world building it offered, and it had some pretty great humor and worked very well as kind of a Christmas special, even though plot wise it was more, I mean, it was less of a Christmas episode and more of a like 4th of July Independence Day episode. Uh, but still, it was, I think, very well made for what it did. It had kind of a nice setup with the main characters, the main six, playing characters in a play that are exaggerated versions of their actual personality. And to be honest, it was really funny. Because the way Pinkie Pie's character, Chancellor Puddinghead, I think it was, which is pretty hilarious on its own, the name, Chancellor Puddinghead, had some of the best lines in that episode. And I really dug it. It ended with a pretty nice, again, very heartwarming climax, and yeah, it was a good episode. It's not among my favorites because it just didn't quite reach me the way some other episodes did, but it was good. It was also one of the more adventure-y episodes, and I enjoyed those once in a while, with one of my favorite episodes from the first season being Dragonshy. So yeah, good episode. It was followed up by another Cutie Mark Crusaders episode. Or, well, maybe less Cutie Mark Crusaders and more episode focused on Apple Bloom. Alright, so Family Appreciation Day. I think at first I thought it was, kind of mediocre. It wasn't bad, it had some funny moments, it was nice to have a bigger focus on Granny Smith, but I didn't think it was anything special. Also, it had Diamond Tiara, who I think is really not that much of an interesting villain because she's pretty much that bratty, spoiled rich girl that's just in way too many shows. And I've seen her character pretty much so often I'm just not intrigued anymore. But still, it was a pretty good episode for the fact that it had the flashback of Granny Smith's younger years, which offered a lot of history on Ponyville. And that I found was really great. It also made me like Granny Smith, who was not much of a character beforehand, except just being, funny old person. So to say that much, it was a good episode. I enjoyed it, and while it's still not among my favorites, I think it would at least be in the top 10, I guess. An episode that probably wouldn't be in my top 10, but I still kind of enjoyed, was Baby Cakes. Now, this was the first episode focusing on Pinkie Pie. And while I like Pinkie Pie, and while I think that she can carry an episode, as, my episode much later had proven, Baby Cakes, I don't know, I think it had kind of a generic premise. I mean, Pinkie Pie having to babysit the children of Mr. and Mrs. Cake was funny, but it was nothing special. I think it gave Pinkie Pie some nice lines and some nice jokes, but really, it wasn't that great. That's pretty much all I have to say about that episode, because I didn't find it all that memorable. Again, not bad, but also not all that memorable. Okay, the last roundup. Alright, now that episode certainly wasn't a bad episode, but it's obvious what we are all watching this episode for. It's the episode that made Derpy canon. And that was pretty much the most memorable scene. I mean, Derpy, she had actual lines. She was actually called Derpy, which I am just really glad, because I never really felt that whole name Ditsy Do, but okay, that's just me. So, yeah, Derpy. Pretty much that. On the other hand, focusing on Applejack, which is actually something good, because Applejack always was the least developed of the main six. Which I found is kind of sad, because she's one of my favorites. But she just never was interesting enough to actually be my favorite. And to be fair, in the last roundup, she's absent for a pretty big part of the episode. Still, it was a good episode. I mean, the characterization was not bad. I think they made Pinkie Pie a little bit too annoying, but that's just me. It was a good episode, I guess, but Derpy. That's pretty much the point of the episode. Derpy. Okay, the next episode, the Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000. Now, the plot of the episode is really nothing special, and not really original. I think some people already pointed out The Simpsons had a very similar episode with a very similar song, and yeah, The Simpsons did it better. Still, though, what I really liked about the episode actually was the song. And while the song, again, I keep complaining about padding, and the song may have been a little bit too long, uh, it just was really good. I really liked that song, mainly because, one of the two brothers, I never quite figured out who exactly is Flim and who exactly is Flam, just had that really awesome voice. The bearded one, the one with the mustache. Whatever. Other than that, it was a okay episode. I liked how it had a bigger focus on Applejack, which, you know, it's nice that Applejack had two episodes in a row, because she usually gets less episodes than the other main six. And to say that, yeah, it was a good song. Now, to be fair, I wouldn't say that the Flim Flam brothers were all that memorable villains, because outside of their songs, they didn't have many lines. I mean, they were like sleazy kind of business ponies who, like, try to ruin the hardworking farmers and stuff. But yeah, I don't think they had all that much characterization. So I like the episode for having a very good song, and other than that, it was decent. That's pretty much it. Now, the next episode I like a fair bit more. Read It and Weep. So, this was the first episode that had really good characterization of Rainbow Dash. And to be honest, one of the only episodes in the season. Rainbow Dash really didn't have a very good run in that season. That's something we gotta say. But anyway, it's partly about Rainbow Dash, but another very big part of it was the story of the Daring Do novels, which obviously were Indiana Jones parodies. And that I really liked. Uh, yeah, because I think it gave the writer the writers an opportunity to do something they couldn't do otherwise. So they had that whole adventure Indiana Jones pulp thing going on, and it was really, really funny. And really, really, just amusing. I mean, while Daring Do in and on herself was pretty much, well, to be honest, she was kind of Lara Croft. But other than that, it had a very memorable villain, even though I have no idea what he's supposed to be. That weird thing with the hand on its tails, and actually, it was kind of creepy. But other than that, it was a very good episode because, except of the really well made Daring Do part, I think the story about Rainbow Dash, enjoying reading was pretty well made. And so it's a really good episode. That's pretty much all I had to say. The next episode is Hearts and Hoofs Day. Another Cutie Mark Crusaders episode, so therefore not among my favorites either. Mainly because I was kind of upset that they didn't give Big Macintosh any interesting lines. There was actually only one episode that did give him some good lines, but that's much later on. Now, Big Mac was, of course, not the central character, those were the Cutie Mark Crusaders, but I didn't like the premise of the episode all that much. I mean, yeah, they make a potion to make Big Macintosh and Shirley fall in love, which, of course, ends as well as you'd expect. But other than that, I don't think there was that much special about the episode. To be fair, I never found Cheery Lee all that interesting, and they just, I don't know, they didn't do much about it. Of course, it wasn't a bad episode, but I don't think there was anything very memorable about it. The song was pretty okay, and the part about that Shelly guy was just so random, it was actually really funny. Other than that, it was just one of those decent episodes, but not particularly great. The next episode would be A Friend Indeed. And that one, while I don't think it's a great episode, I really enjoyed. This was another episode focused on Pinkie Pie. And while I think that Pinkie Pie isn't an easy character to build an episode around because her shtick is pretty much she's the funny one, and for the most part, not that much else. But it was really good in that one. Now, of course, the song Smile, Smile, Smile was pretty damn good, even though I don't like it quite as much as I like the Flim Flam Brothers song or the Pony Every Pony Show. No, it was still really good. And I kind of like, I really liked the central character, Cranky Doodle Donkey. Alone that name is kind of hilarious. Because he had a really awesome voice. You could almost say his voice was bad ass sing. And I think he was a pretty good character. He was just, I mean, he wasn't the original character. He was pretty much just that grumpy guy who had a secret and, was hard to make friends with, but Pinkie Pie actually succeeded. But I don't think that's really the point. It had some really nice situational comedy. It had some pretty funny lines from Pinkie Pie. That whole little scene that was animated in felt was frigging hilarious. It was a good episode. And that's pretty much it. Again, not one of my favorites for that. The plot is just not original enough, but it was really good because it did what it did very well. Okay, putting your hoof down. Uh, I like that one too. I mean, it was nice to have a episode focused on Fluttershy because she didn't get all that many episodes in season 2. And I'm not sure if I really like the premise because Fluttershy being all, bitchy only because she was taught to be, I don't think it really works that well with her character, but of course, it's, rule of funny. So I'm not going to pick on that much. I think what made the episode was Iron Will. That guy was really cool. I don't think he was exactly a villain, but he was a great character. And compared to the villain, he had pretty much the showman attitude of Trixie. He had the tough guy attitude of Gilda. He, he was just an all-around very, I think you can say, very charismatic character, and he was the best part of the episode. He also had a really awesome voice. There's just no way to say anything else other than he has a really awesome voice. So therefore, yeah, it was a good episode. And I do think it had a pretty good lesson, You can be, um, assertive without being a bitch. That is a very good lesson. The next episode was It's About Time. And that episode maybe, or it may be the most original episode because I did like the plot. you know, just starting with future Twilight, and I mean that part was really cool. I like Twilight's like Mad Max outfit she had going on there because eye patch scar on her face, that ninja suit. That was just really cool and really funny if you find out why exactly she looks like that. Other than that, the story, as I said, it was pretty original, but it was also very predictable. So it's not really great. But still, it was a very good episode, and while I don't think it was all that special, I found it very enjoyable. Again, it's not one of those particularly memorable episodes, other than, of course, Future Twilight's awesome outfit, but yeah, I dug it. Episode number 21 would be Dragon Quest. Okay, that episode, I was looking forward to it for pretty much being another Spike episode, and I was not exactly disappointed, but there were some parts where I expected kind of more. It had some jokes that I found kind of cheap, the beginning there with Rarity. You know the scene I'm talking about where she, well, you know the scene I'm talking about. Just was not that funny. And I'm just reading, it was another Meriwether Williams episode. And while I don't want to pick on her, she has a certain tendency for kind of cheap humor. Other than that, I don't think the antagonists were all that interesting. That were just some rowdy dragons that were not all that, well, again, not all that interesting compared to some other villains. It wasn't a bad episode, but I think it's among my, maybe not my least favorites, but I can't say I really liked it. I don't think there is something especially memorable about it either. You know, it was okay, but it wasn't great. But the next episode is one of my personal favorites. And as far as I know, not only one of my personal favorites, but generally what's considered one of the best episodes of the season. Hurricane Fluttershy. Oh boy, that was one great episode because it's pretty much exactly the kind of episode I like. It was very character driven. It was very, well, I guess you can say emotional. It was never, it didn't, well, not never, but it didn't rely much on cheap humor, but character driven humor and character driven emotion pretty much. I really didn't get what that, roided up Pegasus was all about because I thought he was just really out of place. But other than that, great episode. I think it was the episode that portrayed Rainbow Dash the best. Because, it showed her as being very competitive, very self assured, pretty much, very, well, what's the word I'm looking for? Very ambitious, but it didn't show her to be a bitch, well, like some other episodes in the season did. So therefore, I enjoyed it. It had some great interaction between Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash. I wish well, by the way, I wish Spitfire had more lines, but it's kind of okay. Also, I think Spitfire's voice actor changed in that episode. I mean, actually, I'm pretty sure it did. Whatever. Still, one of the best episodes of season 2. I liked it, and that's all there is to say about it. Now, the next episode was Ponyville Confidential, which is kind of a funny name, as a reference to LA Confidential, whatever. Even though it's a Cutie Mark Crusaders episode, I think it's among my favorites. Uh, by the way, the Cutie Mark Crusaders, what I did like very much about them was that their personalities, I don't know if it's intentional, but that their personalities are pretty much maybe a reference to the Powerpuff Girls, which is another show I grew up with. And considering that Lauren Faust's husband, I think, is the creator of the Powerpuff Girls, I think it's not a coincidence. But that's just by the way. So, Ponyville Confidential is kind of a episode I really like because I'm really into journalism. And therefore, it had some stuff in there that I particularly enjoy. I think it's very much a episode about, you know, of course it's done for humor, but that kind of asked the question, how far should journalism go? That's of course not that deep of an episode, but I think it did pretty well for, let's face it, being a show for kids. Because My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is a show for kids. I know it's surprising. Whatever, where was I going with this? Still, I think it was a very funny episode. I found myself laughing at that one line about Diamond Tiara saying, I don't think what was the exact line. Well, I mean, it was pretty much, we don't want any more of those namby-pamby stories. And that one pony in the glass answering, but namby-pamby was a good story editor. Oh god, I just delivered that part horribly, but that's not the point. That was funny, and I think that was one of the best jokes in the show. Other than that, yeah, good show. Good show, well, yeah, of course, good show, but also good episode. The next episode is called Mystery of the Friendship Express. And I didn't like it all that much, to be honest. It wasn't it wasn't bad by no means, but I think that one is among my least favorites. Mm, Probably because it's a bit too much driven by over the top humor. Now they, as this the episode kind of lampshaded itself, tried to set up a who done story kind of based on that one Agatha Christie book. Um, the German version is called Murder on the Orient Express, and I think the original version is also kind of something about Orient Express, whatever. So I really liked the setup, but I didn't like the execution all that much. For one, because again, Pinkie Pie didn't really work in that episode. She had some very funny lines, but I think she's just not the kind of character that works well as a detective kind of character. And that's, I think, my main complaint about it. Also, the three, other chefs that were in the center of the story, I don't think were all that interesting. They were kind of one show characters. What I did like about the episode is Pinkie Pie telling their story and, all of them having a different style, with Pony Joe being a James Bond kind of movie. I kind of forgot what the Griffin was, and the I think it was a mule, could have been donkey too. The donkey chef being in a Tarantino movie, pretty much Kill Bill. That was funny. But other than that, nothing particularly interesting or surprising about that episode. I kind of saw the, I kind of saw it coming who was the culprit. Because the show, it was obvious, it was just not going to be anything else. I mean, again, the episode had some very funny parts, but mm, other than that, it's just not that memorable. And it's kind of sad because, again, Pinkie Pie had only one episode which was really good, which was A Friend Indeed. And the other two episodes were decent but not that special. And we come to the last two episodes, A Canterlot Wedding. And god, were those episodes good. Seriously, I I enjoyed them like nothing else. Now, at first I was skeptical about those episodes because after all we found out it was going to be about, there were those two characters we have never seen before who are going to be really important. One of them being Twilight Sparkle's brother, and you would think he would have been mentioned at some point in the show, but he wasn't. And the other one being a alicorn who's of course pink because they want to sell toys. Uh, so at first I was really skeptical, but when I actually saw the episode, it was awesome. Now, at first when I thought it was about the wedding, I thought it's going to be like kind of the last episode of season one with the Grand Galloping Gala, which was only one episode, obviously, and a wedding. How interesting could a wedding actually be? But what they didn't really show until the episode actually aired was that it's actually going to be a very adventure-y episode. And I didn't expect it. So, of course, I kind of saw the twist about Princess Cadence coming at, you know, from the point on when she appeared, even though not exactly, obviously, but, I was like, yeah, it's going to be something like that. But still, it was very well made. And, you know, even though I am still not that sure about two new characters. I mean, Shining Armor, yeah, he is a pretty good character, and I'm totally okay about him. Cadence still, the actual Cadence, not the fake Cadence. I still think is kind of not bland, but pretty much everything about her personality I got is yeah, she's pretty nice. And by the way, even though I made fun that she, of course, has to be pink, I kind of dig her design. It's very colorful, it's very detailed, and it's just, you know, pretty good. The episode itself, again, it was very well paced, I think. It's obvious why they needed two episodes to do it, and were the first two episodes at some point kind of feel rushed, this one was perfectly paced. And it kind of had everything you'd expect from the season finale. You see, it had a kind of epic story. It had a very memorable and very well designed villains. It had actually a lot of action and ponies kicking some ass, and that oh, dude, that was great. Again, very well designed villain who I may not like as much as Discord, but who was actually pretty dark and was kind of a very credible villain. And it had a lot of epic stuff. Princess Celestia had a pretty big role in it. Princess Luna, well, she appeared, which is more than you can say about most episodes in the season. Really, it's kind of a shame that Luna didn't have a bigger role. So therefore, yeah, great season finale. I couldn't have asked for more. And yeah, those were all episodes of season 2. So, what can I say about season 2? I don't think it's as good as season 1. Or, well, rather, it has more weak episodes than season 1, let's say it like that. Where I don't think season 1 had any episodes I particularly disliked. Yeah, there were one or two in season 2. But still, it's very strong. I think it kept the spirit of season 1. It's still that very funny, very cute, and yet very well made cartoon. That's, what I always thought about Friendship is Magic is that it's kind of 90s Disney esque. Like kind of those TV shows that Disney made pretty much about their actual movies, like the Aladdin show or the Little Mermaid show, or you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's kind of like those shows, and it still is. I don't think that season 2 is much worse than season 1, and it sure had a much better season finale than season 1. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope they can keep up the quality with season 3. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. A great season. My favorite episodes probably are the finale, Hurricane Fluttershy, Sweet and Elite, and Secret of My Excess. My least favorite being Lesson 0, and maybe Mystery of the Friendship Express, and Ne'er Do Well. And other than that, I think it was a very strong season. So that's my review of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 2. If you've actually listened to that whole thing, well, I'm very happy because I was probably boring you to death. And that's all there is to say. So, I am the German snob, and I say goodbye, every pony.